Tack så mycket och välkommen på scen, Ditte.
For several years I've had this image printed on my wall in my studio, and I didn't really know what this image wanted from me, but I was very interested in this old antique sculpture of two fighting bodies. And I'm a little bit nervous because I am to speak about something that is very personal to me. So I'm just going to jump into it. 2 years ago, I had to give birth to a child because I was pregnant. And unfortunately, 4 years prior to that, I had a very dramatic experience with giving birth to my first child. So I didn't really want this situation to happen again. In my first birthing, it was a lot of hospital interventions on me, and there's a lot of things happening that I didn't want to happen. So I decided that adrenaline should not be the driving force for this second experience. So I tried to look at what other factors can play in that birthing situation, and I learned about the other hormone called oxytocin, which is a hormone that is particularly strong during breastfeeding, or even if you just hug a friend, this warm, cozy, calming feeling. So I began to see those two hormones as different entities, like these two fighting men. So I needed adrenaline not to win again, because in a birthing situation, if you have a lot of adrenaline, your body gets afraid and it wants to run away, or it thinks it has a lion chasing it. So it goes into fight or flight. I began manipulating myself, and I used this sculpture as symbols for these two birth situations that could happen to me again. So I began drawing the sculpture again. It's an antique sculpture from thousands of years ago, but I began drawing it as women because it was just a way for me to kind of relate the sculpture and these ideas I had about the sculpture a little closer to my own body. So I had this 3D sculpture, and I think I wanted to have it just in my computer so that I had it from different angles so that I could draw it and finally make a painting of it. And I looked especially at this painter called Fra Angelico, he's the one in the middle, and an architect from the same era, from the Renaissance, called Hans Vredeman de Vries, who made a lot of drawings about perspective, the drawing down there. So I kind of morphed these two together in my developing of this idea. And it was basically because I needed it for my own life situation. In short, I live in the countryside, far away from the hospital, and I decided that I was going to give birth at home, just with my boyfriend and one midwife, and I didn't need all these hospital things that made everything so complicated. And it was the most peaceful, beautiful experience I've ever had. A lot of oxytocin. So that was just a decision I made. So I used this sculpture, especially I made paintings in the days and hours before I gave birth, because I have my studio at home. I live in an old school house, so I have a studio downstairs and then we live upstairs. But every time I painted this is just sketches from my studio wall. But every time I painted I think I made maybe 5 different paintings, big ones and small ones, but every time I painted it, it lost that sci-fi, futuristic aesthetics that I had become to love. It was not something that I intended from the beginning, because from the beginning I was just making drawings for a painting. But there was just something about this aesthetics that I liked. So all the paintings just became Renaissance-looking paintings, and that was not what I was going for. So I've had the sculptures for a few years, and then in the beginning of the year before the Beeple sale, I understood about the blockchain technology, and I found out that there was a place for my pieces that could stay in that backlit, futuristic feel, and that I didn't have to take it out and place it in a gallery like that. So that's why I got into it. I have also earlier been very interested in the early crypto experiments with the crypto kitties and all these projects that come from it comes almost from these trading cards, like Pokemon cards, that you have these valuable small cards in your pocket. And I found that idea very generous, that you can collect and swap with your friends. I'm too old for Pokemon cards, but I'm very happy now that my little son found them. So I think there's something appreciative about that, the way that you can appreciate a little card and then you can trade them. And so just a few more. These are just prints. These are not NFTs. I have one of them looks a little bit like something I minted, but these were just the sketches from before. So I have these. So at this point, the sculpture is still existing only in my computer, and it's very much existing within me because it was something I needed for that one experience. And I keep telling myself that if I could control adrenaline and oxytocin that day, then it should be possible, for example, now, not to have a lot of adrenaline going on, but I can't fully control it. I could for that one moment, but the thing is you can't have like 20% oxytocin, 80% adrenaline. It's either or, so you are driven by one of these forces. And I just think that's very interesting, because I think maybe my entire life I've been driven by adrenaline. And as you might know, adrenaline is what causes stress, what causes everything to break down. All kinds of diseases come because of your body being stressed. It thinks that the lion is still chasing you, so it doesn't have time to repair the different cancers or just a cold that's coming in, because it's trying to escape something. So so of course, as Emil talked about before, crypto and the market, it's a lot about the stock of it, the stock market. And it is for some projects, but I can assure you that there are many projects that are very personal. And for me, it was a format that matched my project. So I began to look at what I then wanted to mint on the blockchain. And I ended up, this is one of the paintings, and even though I really tried, it just wasn't what I was going for. This is another painting. What I normally do is these paintings, these dream gradient paintings, these big, large-scale, duo-toned canvases. So I tried to incorporate it into shows like that. And I also tried to print it. One is a relief, like a coming out of a wall. The white one in the bottom here. And I tried, here it is too. One thing that was very important for me was also to look back at what we think of as an ideal body or an ideal way of thinking of philosophy, for example, comes from these old Greek ideas. And for me, it was important also to translate that into a female body. And especially it was of big importance for me to be able to look at female bodies without it being sexual, that there's nothing sexual, even though there are nipples and very revealing situations. It's not about that. And it's very easy for us to look at men that way, and I wish it was the same. Yeah, so this is Vredeman de Vries, and I think he made many different drawings and etchings of architecture and the perspective, and he goes into the visual realm with almost a mathematic solution, that he wants to figure out how the world is built in a mathematical way. And many of, maybe not this one, but many of his drawings look like games, computer games. So I have found him very interesting for years. This was one of the pictures that I minted on a platform called Foundation. So now recently I have begun to look at the sculptures and see what happens if I separate them. So that's kind of where I am right now. So if adrenaline and oxytocin, what happens if you just look at one of them and not the battle that they are ongoing? At a show in Stockholm at Anna Boman Gallery, I had 2 dancers interpret this sculpture. So they had, it was a choreography by Anna Persson, and the idea was that they would never stop touching each other. So no matter how they turned around in the room, their bodies would never stop touching each other. This is a 3D print. It looks like stone, but it's a 3D printed plastic, nylon actually. It's as heavy as stone. It's just a test. I have never shown these sculptures because I honestly didn't make them for showcasing them. But now I think it's so integrated in my practice that eventually I will have to find a way to show them. So I have a few. So I kept drawing and did different things with the autonomy, and so I printed just to see how, just to turn, I mean, you can turn them around in the computer, but I needed to turn them around also and hold them. And so I did different versions of these prints. And then I also made 2D prints, which is the very new thing, where I'm actually taking all the things that happened with my practice through the blockchain technology and then made prints of them. I did not make prints of the actual NFTs, because the NFTs should be, my NFTs are original in the sense that they are one of ones. So to have like 20 prints would be to shit on the one who buys the original, right? So they just look very much like my NFTs, but there's not an identical version. These are the prints in my studio. I'm showing these just to tell you how, of course, my digital collectibles is worth talking about also, but I also want to just say that the way of thinking and the way of even thinking about this sculpture as prints came through that development of morphing my work into the blockchain. So these are the prints, and this is me holding a print, framed ones. So I have a series of works which are zooms of the sculpture of the 2 wrestling women, of the 2 hormones, adrenaline and oxytocin. So the series is called the Prudent Crop series. And some of them look kind of landscapey. You can't really see what it is, but it's these 2 bodies. My idea was that, so I'm making 100 of them, and they are all unique. You can also make NFTs that is of 1,000 or of 5 or whatever, but there's just one of each. And my idea, since I have collected crypto art myself, I know that I take my phone, I look at it often. I'm consuming it through my wallet, my crypto wallet. So, and there is a lot of colors, there's a lot of action in the NFT aesthetics. So my hope was that when you look at that, if you have like 100 pieces in your wallet, then these are sort of peaceful and quiet, a little more quiet, and maybe you remember that, and maybe you would remember my story and my idea of not rushing, not using adrenaline as a driving force. So it sticks out a little bit in a wallet of a lot of different digital collectibles. Yeah, so this is also just to show you the different angles, and if you can attack this idea from all different angles, zooms, and then maybe it's also a way to consume that knowledge of the hormones and how they affect you. That's the idea of them. Yes, and I kept many of them gray because there's so much color in the NFT spaces, especially these uncurated spaces where I have been minting. They are a little bit like eBay. You can put everything up. Everyone can put everything up. Now, these days, as of this week and the next couple of weeks, there are some very interesting curated platforms coming. And they are, of course, a little bit more centralized. They're not super DeFi, decentralized finance, because they are run by bigger galleries. So that's coming up very soon. And they are showing art that comes, net art from the 90s and all these projects that have led up to the crypto boom. And so there are now coming platforms that are taking care of the history of this era and not just all the crap, because there's a lot of crap. So for me, there are two different ways of talking about crypto art. There's one where it's that democratized, everything goes, and then there is artists that have been artists for years and that have worked with this, not with crypto technology, but with different ways of working with digital art. And this is a picture of the one that I showed you in the beginning. I will put it on again in a bit, but I've also tried to make a small film where you are walking around in this hazy sort of mix between my traditional paintings, dream gradient paintings, and this scene of the sculpture, and the scene is from this architectural drawing by Valand de Vries. So I have placed them in there. So these are just stills from that film. So it's just a sort of poetic little 2-minute film where you are on a tour in this architecture exterior. And then back to the Uffizi wrestlers. I think it's very important to stop looking at men only, but also looking at women, and in all fields, also in finance, also in art collecting, in art making. There must be space also for women, and we are here, so thanks for inviting me, because I know of many women working with both art, with crypto art, and it's important because as of now, the crypto world that wanted to be very different from the old fiat money era is very much a copy of that. It's not so decentralized, it's not people from all over the world, it's white dudes from Silicon Valley. So, yeah, I think it's important to include everyone because now is a chance for a reset. So I think we should embrace that reset. I'm going to show again this, because this is my upcoming piece. I have minted on Ethereum, the Ethereum blockchain, which has been heavily critiqued for the environmental damage that it does. But as far as of later this year, they will change their technology from what is called proof of work to proof of stake. It's a little difficult to explain, but maybe we can do that afterwards. Which means that they will reduce all their damage and their by 99%. So that's the good news. But I actually think I will mint this on another blockchain. There are many different blockchains from different. Every blockchain is connected to a cryptocurrency, and that's why the Ethereum blockchain is so big, because Ethereum is the second biggest cryptocurrency after Bitcoin. So that's why it's so popular. But there are many very different, very important blockchains too that facilitate minting. So there's a lot to look at. Yeah, I think maybe I have said most of what I wanted to say. Yeah, this one will be minted in an edition of 5 a few weeks from now. And what I want to do with this is more of an educational project, apart from the others that were single pieces, 2-dimensional. This will come with a license of digital, of a Creative Commons license, meaning that you can download and print this yourself. So I think there is things to consider on with this blockchain technology and with the idea of making art accessible and giving up rights and holding on to old structures of ownership. That's something I am looking forward to exploring during this fall, where I have some upcoming things to announce that I can't say yet, but it's on its way. Yeah, that was all for me.